Alright everyone, we are back with our historic content list. We said we're going to keep doing these lists every week, so we are. We've been doing nationalities, weight divisions, and we figured we'd switch it up, have a little fun, and bounce around. This week we are going to do the most bizarre or the craziest incidents to ever happen inside a boxing ring. So without wasting any time, bud, throw it over to you.
Yeah, we'll start off nice and easy, and then we're going to build to... I remember listening to the great Tina Turner. And Ike and Tina, her and her husband, they had a great group, right? They were iconic. Tina Turner became even more iconic, I think, on her own when she came back. But I remember one of those songs I love, Proud Mary. And when she sang it, she said, we're going to sing it first. We're going to sing it nice and easy. And then later, we're going to sing it nice and hard. And we're going to, and that's how we're going to do this. Like Tina Turner. We're going to start nice and easy. And then it's going to get crazy as we go up the list. And it's going to get crazy. And I think that I did you guys proud. I tried to by coming up with this list. And yeah, I went back to the 1700s on a few of them. Yeah, not the 17. But I went back, and you're going to be happy I went back. Because wait till you find what I'm going to show you. Wait till you see what I found. For you guys, for your entertainment, and for your knowledge of history, of what went on in the ring and what some of these fighters went through at different times that were just crazy happenings. It's already rough enough to be in a ring where you got another man in front of you trying to put your lights out, right? Trying to take everything that's yours away from you, so to speak. Trying to defeat you. Trying to knock you out. And then you have these peripheral things that take place. It's pretty nuts. So without further ado, I'll start nice and easy. 1993. Adolfo Washington versus Virgil Hill. Yes, Virgil Hill, the silver medalist from the Olympics, light heavyweight champion, tremendous. He was the light heavyweight champ. Washington sat on a stool in the corner at the end of the 11th round, and the cameraman put his TV camera into the corner a little too far. And it hit Washington, and it cut his eye. The cut was so bad, the fight was stopped on cuts by the camera. That's a new one. Richie's like, yes, stopped on cuts, not by Virgil Hill, but by the camera. Hill was declared the technical decision. An aggressive TV cameraman beat him. Okay. I think that's a nice and easy. Maybe not that easy.
And I remember Adolfo Washington. He was a former sparring partner for Michael Moore when he was fighting for the heavyweight title, right? Versus Evander Holyfield.
100%. And he was a terrific sparring partner for us.
That's right.
And helped us get us ready. Cruiserweight at that time. Yes, 100%. Great memory by you, by the way. Great memory. Okay. 1983. I was there. Some of these are solemn for me. Some of these, the crazy happenings, but they change the course of people's lives. Some of them are tragic. They have tragic connotations to them. And this is one of them. 1983, Madison Square Garden. Same night Duran won the junior middleweight title when he completed his comeback after those years, after No Mas. He fought Davey Moore. But this was the co-feature. This was an undefeated kid named Billy Collins Jr., 14-0, versus a journeyman, Louis Resto, 28-2. Only 8 knockouts. I'll say it again, only 8 knockouts. He was not a puncher. Collins took a beating. His face was badly swollen, busted up. He even told his father in the corner, Dad, his father, of course, managed him, trained him. that I could almost feel his knuckles hitting me. After the fight, Collins' father went to shake Resto's hand, and there was basically, well, he was horrified. There was basically no padding or very little in the gloves. Immediately, Collins' father screamed. Resto it was quite a scene. I was there. I was at ringside. Resto was trying to pull away, and like, let go, and Collins' father would not let go. A father would not let go, protecting his son. He called for the inspectors, the father did, to take the gloves. The investigation that ensued after showed that Resto's trainer, Panama Lewis, had removed much of the padding. Fight was later ruled a no contest. Years later, Resto confessed that also, it gets worse, his hands had been soaked in plaster of Paris, causing them to harden like a cast would if you broke your hand and you had a cast on your hand. In 1986, Lewis and Resto were sentenced to prison for 2.5 years. Collins never fought again because of the damage. He suffered a torn iris to his eyes and broken bones all through his face. Some people said he broke every bone in his face. I don't know. It was bad. He spiraled into a deep depression, drinking and drugs, and he was killed in a car accident 9 months later that his father thought was a suicide. His father died a broken man, saying that I almost want to cry as I read this, but because I'm a father. His father died a broken man, saying that they killed my boy that night. So that's number 9. This was just tragic. The other ones, I promise you, they will not be as tragic. They will not be nearly as tragic. So, thank God. So, number 8, 1991, Riddick Bowe versus Elijah Tillery. After the bell ending the first, Bowe is on his way up. He's not champ yet, but he's undefeated, top gonna be a future champ, right? And he's got this fight with Elijah Tillery. After the bell ending the first round, they started to scuffle a little bit in the ring. Tillery threw a few karate kicks. Didn't exactly make you forget about Bruce Lee, but threw a few karate kicks. Bowe punched back, pushing Tillery to the ropes. I know you got a kick out of this one because I work with Bowe. People don't realize that. I actually trained Bowe for a fight in his pro career. Where Rock Newman, I was friends with Rock Newman. Rock Newman had asked me to train him for a fight where the great Eddie Fudge could not be there. He was with Mike McCall in London. I amaze myself how good my memory is sometimes. I really do. I didn't even know I was going to talk about this. But the great Eddie Fudge, who was training Riddick, was in England for a fight with Mike McCall, so he couldn't be there for the training. So I trained him. They asked me to train Bowe. I trained him for a fight. And so anyway, what happened in this fight with Tillery was Bowe throws punches, pushes Tillery to the ropes, where Bowe's manager, Rock Newman, grabbed Tillery from behind. I knew you laughed when you saw it. From behind, you were shaking your head like, wow.
It was a tag team wrestling match.
It wasn't supposed to be, but it turned out to be. Grabbed Tillery. Newman grabbed him from behind in a neck hold, pulling him over the ropes. Bowe won by DQ, and then later in a rematch, won by KO. Okay.
And that's the craziest part of what you just said. Bowe won by DQ.
Yeah.
Tillery was thrown over the ropes.
Yeah, but he threw kicks. Come on. Come on. He threw kicks. And there was a good form to him. Right, Rich? Okay. All right. Now, you're the best, bud. You are the best. This is fun. These lists are fun. I'm glad the fans talked us into doing this. All right. This one is this is very sad too, but thank God not as tragic, but tragic in its own way, though. Hey, boxing can be tragic. Boxing can. Who was it? Was it was either, I think it was the great Archie Moore that said, the old Mongols, I think it was him, said, sing me, blow a trumpet and sing me a blues song. That is the music, the blues. That is the music of a fighter. To hear the trumpet, and an old blues song. As you sit sometimes, unfortunately, by yourself after a fight, alone, in a dark locker room. I think the great Archie Moore lamented on that and said those words, how lonely it can be to be a fighter, and how difficult it can be. Adolfo McCall versus Lennox Lewis, the rematch. McCall had knocked out, big upset, had knocked out Lennox Lewis. McCall was a good fighter, good, solid. He came out, he was known as Tyson's sparring partner, but then on his own, the guy showed he was a good puncher, good, solid fighter. And he won the heavyweight title. He knocked out Lennox Lewis. And then the rematch, first of all, McCall never should have been in the ring. Maybe my son is right, only in boxing, unfortunately, sometimes. I don't know. Sport that I love, sport that I've been in 50 years, but sometimes a sport that I find myself apologizing for much more often than I ever would imagine that I would or would want to. But it is a great sport when it's done right. Two men, and I'll just finish with this, I'll lead this. When two men, when life might not have treated them right, and where you might not have had the best end of it in life, and you might have had the short stick in life, and you might have felt life didn't treat you fair. And the greatness of boxing, the greatness of this sport, is when a man like that has felt that he was shortchanged a little bit by the hand that was given to him in life, that on one given night, if he's determined enough, if he trained hard enough, if he remembers enough of where he came from, he can get in that ring and fight for the title and have his hand raised and be called champion of the world. And in that 36 minutes, he can make life fair. That's why we still love the sport. So in the rematch, McCall is in the ring. He shouldn't have been. This fight takes place 3 years after McCall had knocked out Lennox Lewis. McCall had been having problems, serious problems, alcohol, drugs, depression, psychological issues. He had actually, believe it or not, been in a detox center during training camp. It's absurd. And it's also sad. It's more sad than it is absurd. But he fought the fight.
Yeah, he should not have been in there that night. There's no question, but
no, he shouldn't have been in the ring. He'd been struggling, like I said, with mental drug issues. He started crying in the third round. He was suffering a mental breakdown in front of the world. The fight was stopped 2 rounds later. McCall was sent to a psychiatric ward to be helped.
I remember watching it as a little kid. It was one of the hardest things to ever watch, obviously. But I also still remember saying he is lucky that he was in there with Lennox Lewis that night. Obviously a great champion, but he was a gentleman and he was a class act in a tough situation. A lot of guys might have just teed off on McCall, turning his back. He didn't, and the great Mills Lane was the referee. I think that helped Oliver get out of a tough situation as best as he could that night.
Very good points. I'm glad you brought them up. I'm glad that you finished with those points. There was a punch or two that Lennox did land, but then you're right. He pulled back. But he did land like one or two right hands, which maybe to the moment, maybe to the point that I'm going to bring up here of the kind of mental condition that McCall was in. He did take a right hand, like he didn't care. And because Lewis didn't know what was going on. So initially, Lewis, he started crying, whatever. Lewis threw a right hand and hit him a flush right hand, if I remember correctly. And it was like a raindrop hitting a windshield. I mean, it had no impact. It had no effect on this man who was obviously dealing with things that were a lot worse than right hands. That's all I'll say. And it didn't even impact him. And Lewis could punch. So that speaks to the seriousness and the severity. Number 6. Some people might think this should be higher on the list. You know what? No. It's high enough. When you bite off a man's ear, you don't have to be any higher on the list. Okay? 1997, Mike Tyson, Holyfield. Number 2, the rematch. Holyfield had knocked out Tyson in the first fight. It was the third round. It looked like the fight was going to go the same way, with Holyfield being the boss and not being intimidated by his power or by anything at all, and doing what Holyfield does, which is fight like a warrior. All of a sudden, Tyson bit off part of Holyfield's ear.
Not just once.
No, because his intent was to get out of the fight. So when the referee was going to disqualify him and Holyfield besieged Mills Lane not to disqualify him and said, no, I'm going to knock this son of a you-know-what out. Don't let me go. Get me my mouthpiece. His corner did the right thing. They said, the fight's going to be disqualified. It's going to be stopped. You got half part of your ear gone. And Holyfield, being the fighter that he was, the man he was, the warrior he was, said, no, give me my freaking mouthpiece. Just give me my mouthpiece. I'm going to go knock this, whatever you called him. I'm going to go knock him out. And they talked Mills Lane into letting the fight go on. And it went on, and then Tyson immediately bit him again, because the bottom line was he wasn't going to face this guy. I mean, that was the bottom line. He wasn't going to face this guy. He just wasn't going to face him. Not in that way. Not in that way. Not in a way that fighters have to face each other. His intent was to get out. And until he got out of that fight and out of that ring with that man, he would have bit him a third time and a fourth time. Because his whole thing was he was not prepared to fight Holyfield. And, people, there's fans out there on the other side that say, well, Holyfield was in there with his head and stuff the first fight. And you can say whatever you want to say. You could also say that Tyson set up an alibi, that it was a $30 million fight. He was willing to walk away. I remember writers calling me up and saying, Teddy, what's going on here? Why would he walk away from $30 million? He wanted the ref changed. Halpin was the ref. God bless him. He's not with us anymore. Halpin was the ref. Good ref.
Yeah,
was
Mitch
the ref
Halpin.
the first. He was the ref the first time, the poor man. And Tyson said, I won't fight because, I want a different ref. And you could say he set up an alibi. They gave in. They gave in. They wanted the fight to go on. The commissioner in Nevada gave in. They got another ref. They got the Great Mills Lane. And then he went out there and he bit him. You could say that he had an alibi, that he knew that he couldn't handle. He knew he couldn't intimidate him. He knew he could knock him out. You could say that he was scared. We're all scared. But he was scared in a way that he would, again, be in a position in a ring where there would be no out for him. That this guy would be there. And he wasn't ready to be there with this guy. That this guy, again, would not be scared away. This guy would not be intimidated. This guy, maybe he might land a big punch, but he couldn't do it the first time. So you could say he made an alibi, an escape hatch, a parachute, a golden parachute, where he went into the fight and he said, okay, look, I'll try to catch him. And he did. I'll try to catch him with something the first couple rounds. If I don't, and this guy is the same guy he was in the last fight, where he's breaking me down, I'll get out of the fight. I'll get out of the fight. And you could say that he premeditated, had it in his head. And that's why he set it up with the alibi that, hey, you got to get a different ref because, Holyfield used his head. So this way he could have an excuse to do that if the time came down that he felt he needed to do that to escape Holyfield. It's that simple. Now, why am I talking about this? Because I said it the 2 days before the fight when all the writers, and it's documented, it's out there, you can look it up. Jack Newfield wrote about it in the New York Post. I don't talk about it. I've never really talked about it before. But this is my show. This is my son's show. I figure if we're going to do this list, maybe it should be talked about a tiny bit. But the writers had called me from Vegas to ask me about that, why he was pulling out or talking about pulling out. And I said what I just said to you. And I remember Mike Katz, the late Mike Katz, great boxing writer. We don't have really too many boxing writers anymore. We don't have newspapers that cover boxing anymore, if you're going to be honest. We have, for the most part, you have websites, but you don't have really newspapers. And back then, they still had newspapers, and they were all there, all the top writers. And I remember Katz saying, Teddy, now that's crazy. Now you've gone too far. So you're basically saying that he's going to get himself disqualified? And I said, I think it's a possibility, yes. And then the day of the fight, we were at the great Jack Newfield's townhouse in Manhattan, downtown Manhattan. He was having every year he would have a garden party. And he had a party with everybody over there. And I was getting ready to leave. I didn't want to watch the fight there. I was going to go home to watch the fight with my wife, Elaine. And people were asking me, what's your prediction? And I really didn't want to give one, but Jack said, Teddy, give him a prediction. I said, Holyfield by DQ. And then everyone was like, now you got to explain it. So I explained it quickly. I left. And I'll tell you one last funny story. I left, and back in those days, they didn't have Easy Pass. And we're going through the Battery Tunnel, and there's a kid. There's a kid at the toll. I pay the toll. The kid goes, hey, Teddy. Obviously, he was a boxing fan. He goes, hey, Teddy, who's going to win the fight tonight? And as I pulled away, I got my change first. And then as I pulled away, I just yelled, Holyfield by DQ. And the poor kid, even my wife said, what did you do to that kid? The poor kid was screaming, Teddy, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I was gone. I was on the BQE on my way home to Staten Island. So that I gave you more of a story than I thought I was going to give you on that one.
Yeah, and I'll just follow up and touch on this, but I do remember being with you at the great Jack Newfield's house. And maybe that'll be a story for another day about the events at Jack Newfield's house and the crowds and coming together for these great fights and watch parties he used to host. But I do remember being there with you before the fight. I do remember leaving. And I also remember after the fight, your phone not stop non-stop ringing because everybody wanted to know, how did you know? How did you predict a disqualification? I do remember that.
Yeah, thanks, bud. Listen, I'm not any genius. We all know that. But I do know boxing. I do know human beings. I do know human nature. I do know the human condition. I understand. You could never be a trainer worth your salt if you only knew how to teach and you only knew X's and O's and lefts and rights and defense and offense. You have to know human nature. You have to know how people are impacted by fear. You have to understand that. And I understood that. Okay, number 5. Ray Robinson, Joey Maxim for the light heavyweight title. The great Ray Robinson looks like he's on his way to winning the light heavyweight title. He had already been welterweight, middleweight, full weight classes, 3 full weight classes. He's well ahead, 13th round. He's well ahead with Joey Maxim at Yankee Stadium. It was June 25th, 1952. 48,000 people in attendance. It was over 100 degrees. The referee had collapsed in the 10th round and had to be carried out because of heat exhaustion. Then while ahead, like I said, on all cards, Robinson collapses in the 13th round from heat exhaustion. Number 5. Number 4. December 13th. Here we go, baby. Here we go. Strap up. Put the seatbelts on. Get ready, all you fans out there, all you great audience that watch this show, that love when I go to the 1700s. I couldn't go to the 1700s, Rich, but I went to 1887. December 13th, 1887. Middleweight champion. You ready? Jack, my son loves this. Jack, even when my son said, wow, Dad, you found some wow. Jack, Nonpareil Dempsey versus Johnny Reagan in Sands Point, Long Island. You know where Sands Point, Long Island is, Rich? Okay. Outdoor fight. A storm comes. And by the 5th round, water is up to the ring. By the 8th round, it's in the ring up to the fighter's knees.
Is this a true story?
True story. You go Google, go get your history books, baby. Listen, you think they'd let that go on today? I don't think so. Richie's like,
no shot.
No shot. They all leave. Listen to this. It gets better. Gets better. You talk about dogged fans, not just dogged fighters, not just tough fighters, tough fans. I mean, these guys were real fight fans. You want to test somebody? You want to test somebody? Find out if they're a real fight fan? Well, read this history. These were real fight fans. You guys that complain that there ain't air conditioning, you should be ashamed of yourself. Ashamed of yourself. All of yous. They all leave, and they take tugboats 20 miles to Huntington, Long Island, and they finish the fight outdoors. But I'm not done. They have to shovel snow out of the ring. The fight went 45 rounds, and Dempsey won. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go get your history books. Go Google. Do everything you got to do. But that is a true story.
Incredible. And when they do Google, it was not Jack Dempsey. It was Nonpareil, just for those out there.
That's right. That's right, bud. And where else you going to get this? That's all I'm going to say. I'm not trying to do this. But where else you going to get this? You tell me. You tell me. All right? Number 3. We're getting there. We're getting there. 1989 in London in a fight between Tony Wilson. This is crazy. Tony Wilson versus Steve McCarthy. In the 3rd round, McCarthy drops Wilson. After Wilson gets up and the fight resumed, McCarthy was pummeling him against the ropes. And then Suddenly, Wilson's mother jumps in a ring with one of her high-heel shoes in her hands, and she hits McCarthy over the head, cutting McCarthy. A melee breaks out in the ring, and after it's controlled, finally, McCarthy leaves the ring, and the referee rules that the fight can continue. That's crazy. But McCarthy refuses to come back. He was afraid of the mother. I don't blame him. I'm kidding. I'm not. But he didn't. Would you want to get back in the ring with that mother in the ring with a high heel and to just put that high heel an inch into your head? Richie's shaking his head. No. And I don't think any thinking man would. So McCarthy refuses to get back in to the ring, and the referee, you ready? Declares Wilson the winner.
I had to look this one up. I couldn't believe it. It's up there. It's on YouTube, but unbelievable. But hey, at least she didn't go with the flat. She went for the heel. She knew what she was doing.
And here's another tragic one, number 2. Yeah, well, it leads to it speaks to how sick the guy was and how seriously problemed he was beyond what his actions were in that ring. Sometimes you see the actions of something and it's just the tip of the iceberg, bud. Like it's telling you something's wrong, but it's bad, but you don't know how deep it runs, how bad it really is. And I think this is one of those cases, unfortunately. 2001, I was there. I was doing the commentating with Bob Papa.
I was with you. The Roseland Ballroom, New York City.
You were with me, bud.
Friday night fights, yep. Right after 9/11.
2001, after 9/11, Friday night fights. I'm with the greatest partner I ever had. Well, Marv Albert was a damn good partner, too. And I had him in my first Olympics in Sydney. He was damn good. He's obviously a legend. But so was Bob Papa. He was my commentator doing Friday night fights. And it was never the same when Bob Papa left. It was never quite the same. Never quite as good. But Bob Papa was there with me doing the commentating. Ray Kelly, the police commissioner, who was becoming the boxing commissioner at the time, was also in attendance. James Butler lost the decision to Richard Grant. And after the decision, with the gloves removed from his hands, so you're talking about, bare hands, bare fists, maybe the hand wraps, I don't know. But Butler sucker punches Grant, knocking him out as Grant goes to shake hands with him.
Set a unanimous decision victory.
Oh, look at this.
Butler. Whoa! Butler just ran across the ring.
Butler just went over there and sucker punched and knocked out Grant.
First of all, Butler was arrested. Hey, you shouldn't do that. But you're going to do it with the police commissioner there in attendance? No. He gets arrested. He winds up going to jail. If my memory serves me correctly, I can't remember how much time he did. He did maybe a year.
Yeah, he did a year plus.
Yeah, so he did
assault.
do some for assault, rightfully so. But it didn't end there, unfortunately. It didn't end there. And I wish I didn't even have to say this part, but I feel like if I'm telling a story, you got to complete the story, and unfortunately there is a much worse part to it. A couple of years later, Butler, and that's why I'm talking about where when somebody's doing something, maybe they should have got psychiatric care to this guy right away. Really, you do something like that, people just say, oh, it was just, he was mad. He was this, he was that. But it's not normal. It's beyond the realm. And it definitely shouldn't. What is wrong with our society where we just kind of excuse it. We just kind of brush it off. He went to jail, rightfully so, but we brushed it off like, oh, yeah, we forget about him. But maybe we shouldn't have forgot about him. But then again, you could think about that forever, and it ain't going to change what happened. A couple of years later, Butler killed Max Kellerman's brother Sam in California at Kellerman's apartment. Sam was an aspiring actor. Sam was just a great person, great kid, young kid who loved boxing like Max did. Loved boxing. And he had befriended Butler. And Butler was going through a time where he was, he didn't know what he was doing in his life. He had obviously wanted to resume his boxing career. He got out of jail, whatever. And he was, he was struggling a little bit. So Sam invited him to come stay with him in his apartment in California. And while staying there in his apartment, he wound up killing Sam, hitting him over the head with a hammer. He received a jail term, if I remember, of 35 years.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
Number one. And as I finish with that one, I say a prayer for Sam. Number one, Fan Man. Riddick Bowe versus Holyfield 2. Whoever thought they were going to go to a fight and have somebody parachute into the ring and join them? I mean, we've heard about crashing gates. We've heard about, right, crashing or the wedding crashes. Yeah, you got that movie, right? People uninvited into a wedding. We've seen that guy who's famous, infamous, whatever he is, that gets into all the Super Bowls for free, but that finds a way to get in, right, without paying for a Super Bowl ticket. And he did it for years until he finally got caught. They actually did a documentary on him. There's people that do that. They do it not just because they're cheap so much, but they do it for the challenge, for the juice to get into an event, right, without paying, Maybe some of them are a little cheap. Well, this guy had to be a real cheap state to come up with this way of avoiding paying for a seat, right? This guy took it to another level. The Fan Man parachutes in, Riddick Bowe, Holyfield rematch, outdoors, Vegas, Caesar's Palace, parachutes into the ring during the fight in the middle of the round, and for his troubles, what did he get? He got pummeled by Bowe's corner people and security. I mean, he got beaten. Oh, my God, what a beating he wound up taking. And that's a tragedy, too, because I think later, I didn't follow the whole story. Maybe you know more about it than I do. But I think later on in life, he, if I remember correctly, he had a sad ending. It might have even been a suicide, but he had a very sad ending. I as far as I remember, reading something about that at some point. But man, oh man, bad decision. Just bad to go buy a ticket, pal. Yeah, you know what I mean. Obviously, he wanted attention. He thought he was going to get, maybe he wanted to be famous. He wanted attention. There's better ways to get attention.
He didn't watch the Tillery Bowe fight. He didn't know Rock Newman and the boys ringside.
Yeah, that's a good point. He didn't know that you were crashing the wrong freaking fight and the wrong corner when you crashed that corner, because they went to work on you. And they went to... Hey, look, it's hard to point a finger and get crazy on them, because you don't know what the guy's capable of. He just came from outer space.
Yeah.
He just came from the sky, right? You don't know what he's carrying. You don't know what he's got. All you know is you better freaking make this guy unconscious before you find out what he's got or what the frick he's. You didn't know at that time that he was just a guy that obviously wanted publicity and unfortunately didn't get enough attention. Somebody should have bought him a dog. You know what I mean? Or something. Give this guy attention. And instead, what does he do? The poor guy, he goes, thank God he didn't hurt nobody. But the guy goes out there, parachutes into a freaking ring in the middle of a fight on HBO, and he gets his freaking, you know what, kicked in.
And maybe changed the outcome of that great heavyweight championship fight because of the delay.
Definitely, maybe. I actually thought, I'll tell you the truth, I remember watching that fight. We had a vested interest, bud.
Yeah, I remember watching it with you, yeah.
Because I was training Michael Mora, and we were going to fight the winner. And the favorite was Bowe. You know, he had won the first fight, and
undefeated.
Looked like it was undefeated. He looked like it was too big for Holyfield, the great Holyfield, the great Holyfield. But in the rematch, like you said, I thought the opposite of what people are going to think I'm going to say here. I thought actually that it might have helped Bowe in a way. He lost, but I thought Holyfield was controlling the fight and starting to dominate the fight, starting to really take, and it's a long time ago. Again, I haven't watched the fight, so I'm going off complete memory from 30 years ago, whatever it's been. And my recollection is Holyfield was really in a stream. He was in a rhythm. And he was really starting to dominate the fight, where he might have even wound up stopping Bowe. I was actually thinking that. And then, of course, the long delay, both guys get dry. They got to start again. And then I thought it changed the tempo, obviously changed the rhythm of the fight. Holyfield still won it, but at the end of the day, he didn't have that momentum going, that rhythm going that he had at the moment the fight was stopped.
Yeah, and we lost one of my favorite arenas because of, in part, that incident. Caesar's Palace outside stadium. That was awesome, and I missed that.
Yeah, but we had good memories there, you know, because we wound up fighting. We wound up, what you're alluding to, of course, we wound up fighting Holyfield after that fight with Michael Mora for the heavyweight championship in that same stadium, outdoors for the heavyweight championship. And we were fortunate enough to win it, to beat the great Holyfield in that fight. And you and McCall got in the ring. Mom was everyone. That was a great moment to have you guys in the ring with me after that. I remember, how could I ever forget? I remember when you both of you were very young. Both of you get in the ring, the security pictures up in the air, pass you from person to person to get you in the ring, because I said, get my kids in the ring. And they got you. I remember I said it to Henry Gluck. He was the CEO, the head of Caesar's Palace, the owner, whatever. And I remember him saying, Teddy, congratulations. Anything I can do for you? I said, yeah, get my kids. It was right at ringside. Get my kids in the ring. And immediately he turned and he said, get Teddy Atlas's kids in the ring. They started picking you up, these big security guys. You guys were little. And they carried you, put you in the ring. And I remember you guys said, you did it, Dad. And I said, no, I corrected you right away. I said, no, we did. And I remember one of your favorites, you loved MC Hammer. And I remember for Christmas, you got MC Hammer pants and you used to dance around. You can't touch this, Papa. Can't touch this. And you used to, you were very cute. And you used to, yeah, fast feet. And not quite Lomachenko's, but really, really up there. And you would do that, and we all got a kick out of it. And who's in the ring? Who's in the ring that night?
Yeah, MC Hammer.
MC Hammer.
I loved MC Hammer as a kid, as you said, but it's your fault he disappeared. That night, not only did Evander Holyfield take the loss, but MC Hammer's career went downhill after that. But great memories, as you said, great night. And that's when I got to hear my favorite words of all sports for the first time, and the new heavyweight champion of the world. So I great memories at that outdoor arena at Caesar's Palace, and a great job by you, great list. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't know the Dempsey parallel story, and even hearing the Maxim and Sugar Ray Robinson heat exhaustion, and obviously a nice mixture with some more modern fights that I do recall and remember seeing as a kid. With that being said, I'm going to just throw out a couple incidents that stood out to me that we didn't touch on. Again, you can't touch on them all, but Riddick Bowe, Andrew Galata. You were there live. You were commentating for HBO Radio. The melee, kind of like in the NBA, the Malice at the Palace with Ron Artest and the Pacers versus the Pistons. That was very, very similar. What is it with Riddick Bowe? We just mentioned him now. We mentioned him versus Tillery. And then, of course, him versus Holyfield with the Fan Man. That's 3 times for bizarre incidents. Another one I touch on I've never seen before, Norman Stone.
Just for the people that really aren't quite up to speed on that was the low blow fight where Galata was ahead in the fight. He was winning the fight big, handily. And he just threw low blow after low blow until he finally got DQ'd. And and then again, Bowe's corner wasn't playing.
They weren't playing, and thank God everybody was okay, especially Lou Duva. I remember that chaotic scene and Lou laying on the ground and taken out on a stretcher. But yeah, the other one I was gonna say is Norman Stone. Norman Stone looked out for me, trained me a bit when I was in Boston, boxing up there at the Somerville Boxing Club in my college days. And he did something I never saw in a fight before. He got thrown out of the corner during a heavyweight title. I think it was a title fight. If not, it was a big heavyweight fight for John Ruiz versus Andrew Galata. And they threw him right out of the corner. The referee didn't play. I remember Stoney walking through and looking at Don King and saying, hey, they're fixing this one. But he maybe should have been thrown out for some other ones.
He was a classic Stoney. If you knew him, you had to love him.
Yes.
Loyal guy, tough guy. Little crazy. But if he was your friend, you were glad he was your friend because he'd be there for you and with you.
Absolutely. And he was there for me in college and his whole entire crew looking out for me up there. So, and the last one I'd say was Bernard Hopkins. I remember this one versus Robert Allen. The Great Mills Lane was trying to break him up in the clinch, gave a little push, and maybe he pushes Bernard out of the ring. Bernard was unable to continue. They wound up doing the rematch later, which Bernard won. But that was a pretty bizarre incident that I recall as well.
Yeah, that's a good addition you threw in there, bud. Some real good. They could have made the list. You can only put 10. So, but those are good ones. I had forgotten about the crazy low blow. I mean, really, what makes it even more crazy was you would think, okay, that's the end of that. They fight a rematch. He does it again. That's what makes it even more insane.
With Galata, yeah.
Galata, you say, okay, whatever. He's short-circuited. Whatever freaking happened, his compass went bad, and he thought north was south. Whatever, right? And then what happens? He gets the rematch. Same thing. So
and winning.
Obviously,
well ahead.
Winning again. But that's why I always talk about this game. It's the mental part that people have no idea. You have to be a psychiatrist to be a good trainer half of the time in this business. And I don't mean a psychiatrist with a diploma, a psychiatrist just from life, from understanding the human condition and what can happen when people are under pressure, when people are in a fearful situation, even when they're winning.
Absolutely. Great job. Great list. I hope all the viewers enjoy this one. I had a lot of fun with it. And we will be back next week with some more lists. So as always, guys, let us know what you thought about this one. Let us know who are we missing in this list. And give us some more suggestions, ideas moving forward. And we will be back with more Teddy's Historic Content list moving forward.